Right, grade 12s, good day and welcome to video number 2 in our two-part series to prepare you for your theory final paper. I know many of you have gone through the first paper. Please make sure you do click on the description in the first video or in this one to get that PDF that has all of those CAT terms that you will ever need. Okay, so that's, yeah, it's a huge document, but it's got a lot of, well, not a lot, just got every term that you'll need. So in this video, we're going to go through an IEB paper. In fact, it was the one in the September prelim. So we're going to go through this, and obviously combined with everything else that we've got on the channel, that should be over enough to prepare you for the task ahead. So let's go through this paper. First section deals with multiple choice. So they're asking us here, which one of the following Excel functions will always return an error message? The first one we've got is equal sum total. Okay, so that seems fine. Everything seems okay there. And then we've got equals len. Now, what does equals len do? We know equals len is going to give us the length of a particular string. We've got equals today giving us the date. But something doesn't seem quite okay with this formula over here. Now, why is that? Remember, when it comes to a round function, what has to happen? You've got to indicate which cell you want to round off. But then you've got to add in, you've got to have not just A1, but you've got to have A1 comma, and then to how many decimal points do you actually want to round this number off to. So if it was A1 comma 0 or A1 comma 1 or comma anything, it would be fine. So D is our problem. This is the function that's always going to return an error message. 1.2, which one of the following options can be used to stop a table in Word from splitting across two pages? Now, we have to look at each one of those options to make sure we understand the options before we select anything. And I'm already just going to go with C and say, well, page break before. We know what page break does. It's going to break that page and move everything before this table off to the next page. So that's already an option that's not even an option. Okay, let's look at the next one. The first one, A, says keep with next. So what does that do? The keep with next paragraph option, it binds the last line of a paragraph to the first line of the next. Okay, so that could be an option, because think about what they are asking you in the question. Well, let's go through the next option. The widow/orphan control. What does it do? It prevents a single line of a paragraph from being left alone at the top or bottom of a page. Doesn't really fit in with what we are doing. Okay, so I'm going to knock out B. I'm going to knock out C, like I said. So I'm sitting with A, and let's look at what D is. Well, the keep lines together, if we use that, we'll pick a line, and we want to keep those lines together in a particular paragraph. So 1.2 is going to be A. Right. Let's go over 1.3. A code in Access which forces data capturers to enter data in a specific format is known as what? Well, it's not a primary key, because a primary key is the most unique item in your group of fields. Your validation rule, like when we say they need to enter M or F in a field, okay? Your validation text, no, because the validation text will pop up on your screen once a validation rule has been broken. So they're saying here it forces data capturers to enter data in a specific format. So this is your clue here, specific format. Your validation rule will tell you, look, you can enter only M or F or A, B, C, or whatever the case is. Using the input mask, you will actually indicate to people in the specific format they must enter the data. So 2 letters, 3 numbers, maybe another 2 letters at the end. That is forcing data capturers to enter it in a specific format. So 1.3 is input mask. Right, a malicious website. So when we look at malicious, we're talking about harmful website that resembles a legitimate or genuine website used to gather usernames and passwords. So when we look at these terms, again, you just need to understand the difference between these terms. Phishing and farming being the ones that are really, they sort of work together, okay? Because phishing is where they are, people are trying to bait you into getting your information. Farming is where you have a website that is now being created that really resembles a legitimate website. And through fishing and farming, they'll bait you by sending an email to you and telling you, you've won this, or you need to verify your details. You click on the link. That link takes you to a website, a malicious website that resembles a legitimate website. So guys, just by understanding the terms, where are we going? 1.4, we're going with farming. Okay. Then 1.5, which of the following statements about word processing files is false? Well, let's look at this. A, documents with a RTF extension. Now, what does this mean? It means a rich text format. So documents that have formatting. Now, with Notepad, they are saved as just normal text files, right? Your normal .txt. But if you use WordPad, WordPad allows you to put some formatting in, so the file will be saved as a rich text format. Rich text just means we can add formatting to the text. So that saying here, documents with RTF extension can be opened with most word processors. That is true. You save a Word document with a TXT extension, all formatting will be lost. Yes, because it is just a normal text format, right? Nothing else in it. A Word document with a .docs extension can be saved as a PDF. Yes, we know that. We've done that over the years. Then D, documents created and saved by newer versions of a, okay, pause here, by newer versions of a word processor can always be opened by an older version of the same word processor. So what they're saying here is, if you have Word 2019, can that Word 2019 document, if you send it to someone that has Word 2010, will they be able to open it? No. Okay. The 2010 document, in other words, the older document, older version of the document can be opened by newer versions, but the newer versions can't be opened by the older ones. So that is false. It means our answer here is D. Right, 1.6, the main purpose of OCR, what is that? Optical character recognition. What does that mean? It means that when I scan something, the scanner that I'm using and the software that goes with it is able not just to scan the image, but also to identify the characters on the page. That's why it says optical, using an eye, a scanner, to check the document and recognize the characters that it finds on the page. So the main purpose of OCR is to produce a document so that it can be what? Saved in PDF, edited and formatted, saved as a picture, sent via email. Now, why would you use this software in the first place? I mean, why do you want to scan in a document and have the software read the characters on the page? To save it in PDF where you can't do anything with it? No. To save it as a picture? Definitely not. Send it via email or instant messaging? Really? No. Okay. So our only option here, and because we understand what OCR is, we use OCR software because we want to take the document and edit it, add things to it, format it, all this type of thing. So B is our answer over there. I hope you're starting to see that just by looking at the question and reading the question, trying to understand what has been asked, then looking at the answers and trying to understand what each one is, or the meaning behind each one of these, it helps us to eliminate those things that we know it's not and to choose the correct answer. 1.7, a trend in technology that allows for household appliances to be connected to the internet. What's that going to be? Is it the Internet of Things? Possibly. What about B? VoIP. What does that mean or stand for? That's voice over IP, right? That's like having a WhatsApp call. Your voice is going over the internet. So, no. What about HTTPS? Sorry, I'm moving things around here. What about HTTPS? That stands for your hypertext transfer protocol, and the S stands for security. So it's a secure website. That's what it's actually going for. Okay, so that's got nothing to do with this. And then IM is our instant messaging. So can you see, just by understanding these things, we can eliminate all of them and say, well, it's got to be the Internet of Things, because the Internet of Things deals with how we are using the internet on a daily basis in a variety of different areas. Okay, so the 1.7 is A. 1.8. Which one of the following is not associated with the other options? So we've got social networking, Instagram, vlogs. Now, before I even go any further, all three of these are connected. So it's got to be the digital divide. Now, what is the digital divide? This is where we're talking about the fact that there's all this technology, but there's a big gap between the technology and people that have the skills to actually use it. Okay? If you are in this digital divide, generally you won't be using these three things. Okay? Right. So it's D. 1.9. Which one of the following is most likely to lead to an increase in the performance of a computer? Right. Let's see. A, installing a new antivirus program. B, adding more RAM. C, adding a DVD drive. D, increasing the refresh rate of the monitor. Please, the refresh rate of the monitor has got nothing to do with increasing the performance of our computer. Adding a DVD drive, or what we would call an optical drive, again, guys, got nothing to do with that. Installing an antivirus program, well, in some cases, the antivirus can even slow the PC down. So the most likely option that will lead to an increase in the performance of a computer is RAM, right? Or memory. And then the last one for question number 1, which one of the following devices has a specification measured in ppm? What does that stand for? Pages per minute. So if we're talking about pages per minute, what are we talking about? We're talking about printers. Monitors? No. Scanners? No. Digital cameras? No. So the only option there is A, our printer. Right, question number 2. Again, here we go with matching the items. So here you can see they've got 5 questions under question number 2. They're giving us a sentence and we need to choose the appropriate option for the particular sentence. And before we do that, let's just look at what these things are. In the first place, when we look at 2.1, they're talking about the EULA and the AUP. Now, what is the EULA? That's the End User License Agreement. Now, what is that? That's basically a contract between the person who created the software and the person who is going to be using the software. And it specifies the terms and conditions of use. So, simply put, when you go and buy Microsoft Office and you click next, when you install the program and you agree to the terms, you are agreeing to the end user license agreement. You are agreeing to how to use that piece of software on your computer. It's an agreement, binding agreement between yourself and Microsoft that created, or whichever company creates the particular software. Now, an AUP is an acceptable use policy. And this will dictate when, let's say, for example, you're going to KFC, you use their Wi-Fi. Their acceptable use policy is along the lines of, well, you can only use it for 30 minutes and you only get, let's say, 50 megs or 100 megs to actually use, right? Schools might have an AUP where they say you can connect to the Wi-Fi, but the policy indicates that you can only use a maximum of, 150 megs a day. You can only use it to, send WhatsApp messages or email, something like that. But that's the difference between an EULA and an AUP. Going down our UPS, right? UPS stands for our uninterrupted power supply. So what is that? Our UPS basically acts like a battery to keep the PC running when the power's off. So generally your PC will plug into a UPS, your UPS plugs into the wall, so that when the power goes off, when Eskom decides to say, time for load shedding, your PC will remain on. It doesn't stay on forever, but it stays on for a specified period of time so that you can shut down your PC safely. UTP is a type of standard for cables. That's your unshielded twisted pair. So it's a specific type of cabling. Capped and uncapped. This refers to, obviously, the amount of data we have on our internet line. If it's capped, it means there's a limit to it. If it's uncapped, there's no limit to the amount of data we can download, right? Then we have our NFC and we have our RFID. Now, we know with our RFID, that's our radio frequency identification. And these are tags that can be put on things where you can actually store information into them and then keep track of these items, okay? Whereas NFC, this is it's called near field communication. This is a technology that allows users to make secure transactions and exchange digital content with just a touch. So if, for example, your device, let's say your smartphone, for example, is NFC enabled, it means that you can actually do sort of contactless payments. So when they show you this Samsung Pay and things like that with your phone, that's an example of that. Then last one, we've got our OLE object in Access. What does that do? That allows us to pop in pictures, store images and documents in that particular field. Our validation rule, we have spoken about that before. So having, looked at all of that, let's go back and now answer the questions. So it's saying and which one of the two is a document containing the rights and responsibilities of users used mainly in a networking environment. Does this speak about an agreement between yourself and a software company? No. So it cannot be EULA. It's going to be AUP. The next one. What is a type of networking cable? Does it have anything to do with power? No. Is it a type of cabling? Yes, so it's UTP. Which one of the two, or which one of the type of data is limited? There we go. I don't even have to go further. If it's limited, it's capped. If it's not limited, it's uncapped. Which one of these devices have the shortest range and is typically used for contactless payments? What did I just say about payments? Okay, so it's NFC. And which one of these is an example of a data type in Access? This is a rule. This is a data type. This is our match the column. So generally we'll just put down 2.2.1 and then the relevant item that is over here. So here we can see we have a number of different things, a number of different terms, and we've got our definitions on the side. So let's look through these options. How many do we have here? Normally have 10. Okay. I'm not going to go into detail and explain each one of these. You've got the document for that. I'm just going to go through the answers. So a module in which computer memory is supplied, right? A module in which computer memory is supplied, that's going to be our DIMM. Remember, these are slots where our memory physically slots into, or onto rather, the motherboard. Okay. 2.2.2. This allows users to interact with computers using visual objects such as icons and buttons. Okay, so we're talking about interaction using icons and buttons. That's going to be our GUI, or our graphical user interface. All right, remember our desktop icons, all those things. That's how we interact with the computer. 2.2.3, a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult to change, hack, or cheat the system. What is that going to be? A system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult to change, hack, or cheat the system. And that is going to be a blockchain. 2.2.4. I don't want to get into deep definitions of that. I'm very much a crypto enthusiast myself, and this technology is just absolutely awesome. But everything is there in your document as well. All right, the next one, a method of sending emails to multiple people without them knowing who else is receiving the mail. Now that should be our BCC. And there we go. It is BCC. 2.2.5, a malicious attempt to disrupt the normal traffic of a site or server by overloading. I can already think about sort of spamming, something like that. Overloading it with connection requests from botnets. Let's have a look. There we go. DDoS. This is the denial of service attack. Okay. There's been many over the years that have taken down various servers of different companies. So yeah, it's like you having 500 people, just come to your door to ask you questions, and you just can't deal with all of that. You get overloaded, and the servers just back up. 2.2.6, a network connection method commonly used by people who are taking advantage of a BYOD policy. What is this? Bring your own device. D is for device. Okay, nothing else. Right? So a network connection method commonly used will be our Wi-Fi. The network connection method commonly used by people who are taking advantage of a BYOD policy. All right, 2.2.7, technology that provides high-speed data over a wide area. There's our first clue. Wide area. Can't be things like ADSL. We've used Wi-Fi, GPS, freeway. No. So we're going to look at the only one that it can be, and that is our WiMAX. Remember, WiMAX gives us more speed and a greater coverage area in terms of Wi-Fi. Okay, 2.2.8, a version of software made available for testing and removing bugs. Usually I would immediately come up with the term beta version. Right, software version made available for testing and removing bugs before the software goes on sale. Do we have beta as an option? Yes, we do. Okay, so beta is our option. There's been a lot of software, sometimes even games go out in beta version. They want people to test it, try it out, work with it, then tell the company what the problems are so that they can, sort it out before it goes on sale. All right, 2.2.9, a technology that makes geotagging possible. What is geotagging? Geotagging is when I'm using my phone and I activate this feature so that when I take a picture, it stores when I took the picture, the time and where I physically was at that point in time. So what sort of technology makes that possible? Let's look at here we go, right here. GPS. Right? That's the technology that makes that possible. And then lastly, 2.2.10, a downloadable update used to fix software bugs. And that's just underneath GPS. That's going to be our patch. So now we move on to question 3 that deals with system technologies. And in this case, they're giving you a couple of images and they want you to identify the image and give the main function of the image. Now, one of the first things we also look at is the mark allocation. Okay, let me just check this out. It's worth 10 marks. So they were looking at 2 marks from each of these because obviously there's 5. Okay, so again, folks, you don't have to give an entire paragraph worth of information, but let's just have a look at this. So when you look at this icon, what is this? What does it indicate? Well, it indicates a hotspot. Okay, so that's the first thing. You are identifying that it is a hotspot. Secondly, what do they want to know? Give the main function of the image. Well, we know that a hotspot is a physical location where people may, get access to the internet. Okay, usually via Wi-Fi, but it's at certain locations. So when you go into KFC and you go and use their Wi-Fi, you're actually using their hotspot. Okay. The next one over here, 3.1.2. What is that? Well, that is a motherboard. We've identified what it is. What's its main function? Well, it's the main circuit board in your normal computers or your general purpose computers. And obviously you can slot a lot of things into it, like your memory and your power supplies, your hard drives, all those type of things. But that is your motherboard, and you just need to identify that it's the main circuit board in your general purpose computers. All right, 3.1.3. What is that? That is a screen that we see often when sites use this capture technology. That's CAPTCHA, capture. That's what it is. And it's a computer program or, some kind of system that's intended to distinguish human input from machine input. Now, we know there are a lot of bots these days that are, spamming things and attacking certain servers and things, as we've mentioned before. So this is a way of identifying that the person who's trying to access the account or site is actually a human being. So it's capture. Number one, that's what it is. Secondly, it is a computer program designed to distinguish human from machine input. Okay, 3.1.4. What is this? So we know this is the motherboard, but what is that? Because it looks like it's actually built onto into the motherboard itself. That, ladies and gentlemen, is ROM, read-only memory. Now, already we know, obviously, what it is, but we already know via the name that it's dealing with memory. And we know that ROM is a form of non-volatile memory, which means it doesn't change. It's a type of storage medium that permanently stores data on our personal computers, okay, or other electronic devices. Remember, when we talk about permanency when it comes to computers, it means that when we switch it off and back on, the instructions that are loaded in here don't disappear. Then lastly, 3.1.5. You can see we've got some sort of device that's scanning an eye. Okay, so here we're talking about a biometric, you can say a biometric eye scanner, biometric iris scanner, anything like that, but that's what it's doing. It's scanning the eye itself, the iris over here, to make sure that it is the correct individual. Okay, so that's what it is. This biometric scanner, what does it do? It works by illuminating the iris with invisible infrared light to pick up the unique patterns that are not visible to the naked eye. I know it's a long explanation, but you can summarize it any way you want to over there. Okay, so that's covering those first few items. All right, then we go on to the next one. And in some papers, they have brought up the topic of blockchain technology, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in these papers. In fact, in this one that I'm going to show you and go through, they do talk a lot about cryptocurrencies. So if your papers haven't covered it, at least you know with this one you are. So here they talk about Bitcoin mining. They mention here that mining is a complex process that involves solving a mathematical puzzle to validate transactions or to mine, in other words, produce new blocks of cryptocurrency. So this is the process of how new Bitcoins come into being. Okay, the main component of Bitcoin mining hardware includes ASICs. Yeah, you can see the whole word over there, or your GPUs. Okay, so mining can be done through specialized machines, using your ASIC machines, or some people use their, obviously very, very highly powered graphics cards in order to do this as well. Except for the GPU, the other parts of the mining system need not be top notch. It can contain a mediocre CPU, regular motherboard, and dynamic RAM. Okay. So having said all of that, they ask us two questions over here. One of the Bitcoin miners is confused between the differences of CPU and GPU. Explain the main differences to the miner. Okay. 4 marks is our allocation. What are we saying? Well, number one, the CPU, that stands for Central Processing Unit, 1 mark. GPU stands for Graphical Processing Unit. That's your other mark. So already I've got 1 mark here and I've got 1 mark over here. Then what does the CPU do? Because remember, I'm trying to explain the difference. Well, the CPU does all the processing that takes place in a computer. What does the GPU do? A GPU is a processor designed to handle graphics operations. Moving on, your computer is running slow and you would like to speed up your computer without removing any files on your computer. What utility program will you use to help speed up the computer? And a very simple one which we can use is disk defragmenter. Okay, go through that process of disk defragmentation. So now that you've mentioned it, they're asking you, well, how does the utility that you mentioned over here, how does it actually work? Well, our disk defragmentation process works like this. The more you use your computer, the more files get scattered on the disk. Remember, when we use our computer, it's a case of, having files all over the place. We are copying files, deleting files, doing all of these things. The disk defragmenter is simply a utility that puts the part of the files back together again and speeds up your computer. So I'm going to say that again. Your disk defragmenter is a utility that puts, all these scattered parts of files. It basically puts all those scattered parts back together again, and this helps to speed up your computer. All right, 3.4. You want to make backups of all your important files on your computer for safekeeping, but not all of them fit on your memory stick, and your memory stick is new. Okay, so let's first answer 3.4.1. What does the term backup actually mean? Now, when we talk about backups, we're talking about making a copy of some sort of data, whatever it is you're looking to back up. So let's say I'm looking to back up a folder that's got all my files on my computer. I'm making a copy of it and I'm wanting to store it somewhere else in case anything happens to the original, right? The original gets deleted, corrupted, anything like that, I can restore it from the backup that I have. 3.4.2, what software can you use to make your files fit in a memory stick? Simple answer, I can use any form of compression software, things like WinZip or WinRAR. They are there to compress, so in other words, simply make the size of that folder smaller without actually damaging the data. Right, then the last one on question 3, they say name the hardware component that's associated with the given model of a Bitcoin mining computer. Now, bear in mind, they are talking about a Bitcoin mining computer, but all this, it's still very relevant to your normal computer, and you're going to see why now. Okay, so when we talk about the we've got here the Asus B250 mining expert, we've got the Intel Celeron, the NVIDIA GTX, we've got the Corsair HX 1200, and then we've got this over here, the Newegg Patriot memory. Okay, so obviously if I just work my way up, this one is going to be RAM, right? Because there we can see it's dealing with my memory. Already here, when I see Intel Celeron and things like that, what am I talking about? I'm talking about my CPU. When I see NVIDIA GTX, we know that this relates to graphics cards. Okay, so now if I look at a normal computer, and I've got my CPU, I've got my graphics card, I've got my RAM. The RAM and the graphics card and the CPU, where are they plugging into? They're all plugging into the motherboard. So which of these relates to a motherboard? This one over here, this model, the Asus B250, this is dealing, well, this is an example of a motherboard. And then all of this needs to be powered by something. So my Corsair over here is my power supply. Okay, so they can give you different examples, but this is just to show you all of these components are everything that you'd see in a normal computer. All right, question 4. Now we're dealing with internet and network technologies. They're talking here, what determines cryptocurrency transaction speed? And the answer is network load. In case the network load is high, crypto transactions will take longer than normal. Occasionally, transactions will take between 24 to 32 hours when the network load is very high. In most cases, investors can do nothing to lower the network load because they do not have control over a blockchain's capacity or speed. Now, based on that, they want us to answer the following questions. When we look at the term broadband, okay, this is generally the preferred method to be connected. So what does broadband actually mean? Well, all it's referring to is a high speed, high bandwidth connection to the internet. I'm actually just going to, let me do this quickly. Referring to a high speed, high bandwidth connection to the internet. 4.2, what is there's the answer. What does Mbps stand for? And that's going to be megabits per second. Okay? All right, moving on. Mining for cryptocurrency takes a lot of data. Opportunistic miners might look for vulnerabilities and seek opportunities to attempt piggybacking. Now, if we just think about it this way, if I ask someone to piggyback me, I'm basically asking them to put me on their back. Why? Because maybe I'm tired of walking. I need them to carry me a certain distance. So I'm using their energy. I'm using their speed. I'm using, everything from them to get myself from point A to point B. Okay? So think about that when you think about piggybacking. When we now talk about piggybacking in terms of the scenario that we have here, this is basically when other people are using our internet bandwidth to, do whatever they want to do, but it's without our permission. That's the whole thing. when other people are using our internet bandwidth or they access our Wi-Fi without your knowledge. So If you are sitting on the corner outside, or you're sitting at a certain point in your house accessing your neighbor's Wi-Fi without their permission, okay, we understand they should have a password and they don't. You are actually piggybacking off theirs, and yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. Okay, right. What can people do to prevent piggybacking from happening to them? Well, main thing, put a password on your Wi-Fi and make sure it's a secure password. Okay, not your dog's name or anything like that. Really, you should be having a very strong password. Right, moving on. Users can mine for cryptocurrency using different methods of connection. Give 2 different options to connect wired to the internet. Okay, now we're talking about a physical line that's bringing the internet into your property. The only 2 we know at the moment are ADSL or fiber. Okay, those are our wired connections. Give a wireless option to connect to the internet that will ensure that a user is always on. Well, the only one we can use is our cellular. Okay, with cellular, having data on our phone means we can connect anywhere we are. Because if you've got a little satellite dish, you know, having your wireless connection at home, you've got to take that dish with you wherever you are to be able to get or have connection. All right, then 4.5, users who have a capped package. In other words, that's what the question is. What does capped mean? When we talk about a capped package, we mean that there's a limit to the amount of data that can be downloaded maybe per day or per month. Usually it's per month. Usually they'll tell you, listen, you know, your contract or however much you've bought gives you access to 30 gigs of data per month. That is your cap. That is your, basically what they're saying is your limit. All right, 4.5.2, ISPs might slow down the internet, the user's internet connection if the ISP believes a user is downloading excessively. So what is the term used for this explanation? Simple word, 1 word answer, throttling, right? If they see that you are downloading hundreds of gigs and things like that every single day, they will throttle you. And what that means is that they are going to slow down your internet, okay, because you are doing that. Please remember there's a difference between throttling and shaping, okay? All right, then 4.6, most users are connected to the internet 24/7 and make use of different services provided on the internet. Basically, they just want to know what's the difference between cloud storage and cloud computing. So cloud storage is when we have files stored on the internet. And when we say on the internet, it's not just up there somewhere. It is on a computer on the internet somewhere else. So if I send files via, let's say, WeTransfer or on Dropbox, it's not just up somewhere, you know, floating into outer space. No, it's on a computer at the Dropbox offices, wherever they are around the world. Cloud computing, however, is different because here we will be dealing with the sharing and use of resources and applications offered as services on the internet. So you might have, for example, an Office package that is completely free, but in order to use it, you need to be connected to the internet. So you are using the application or you are using the particular program on the internet. You have to be connected in order to use it. It has advantages in that, you know, you don't have to install anything on your PC, and regardless of your PC speed, you can still have access to that, but it doesn't always come with all the, you know, the features and things like that. So that's just the difference between cloud computing and cloud storage. Okay, so question 5 deals with information management, and they talk a bit about the POPIA Act, and there's been a lot of talk about this. So you would obviously have read through that. You would read the extract and then answer the particular questions. They say here, whenever you go to a medical facility for some form of treatment, we always fill in documentation asking various questions about us and the person responsible for paying the bill. Now, why is it necessary for these facilities to obtain this data? List 2 reasons. So they obviously want to know, you know, who you are and then who's responsible for the bill, so that number 1, they know who they are treating. Okay, so Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong place now. So they know who they are treating. And as they're saying, who is going to pay the bill, right? They would also want to know if you have any pre-existing conditions. Maybe you've got some allergies, you know, anything like that. But that's what they're looking to find out. That's simple, okay? Would these questions be mostly open or closed? Now, first of all, what's an open question or what's a closed question? A closed question has a definitive answer. So like, is the wall in front of you white? Yes, it is, or no, it isn't. That's a closed question. An open question means that, you know, when they are asking for your opinion on something or there's no definitive answer to that, okay? So these would be more closed questions. Then, would this facility or any other medical facility be allowed to sell this data to a marketing company that offers to pay for it after the 1st of July 2021? So you have to read that extract. So the answer is going to be the following. I want to take this answer, bring this across here. No, it will be a criminal offense to sell or give any data or information pertaining to a person, to any person, to a third party. You can and will be held liable. So you can see, based on the POPIA Act, it is a criminal offense for them to take your data and to give it to anyone else. Name 2 applications the medical facility can use to store the information provided by the patients. Well, they can use things like spreadsheets and databases. Okay, simple as that. Spreadsheets and databases. Then the medical facility wants to send individual letters to their clients informing them of the new POPIA Act. Provide 3 steps they would follow to do a mail merge. Now, I usually say a mail merge is set up of 4 steps. And it would be obviously saying what you want to do. You want to start the mail merge. You would then select the recipient list, right? Whether that's going to be a spreadsheet or a database, anything like that. You'd insert the merge fields and then finish your merge. So you could say, for example, step number 1 is to choose the mail merge wizard, right? Or start your mail merge. Then you would go on to select recipients or select the data source that you are going to be using. You would then insert your fields and finish. That's it.